that's in the federal government. I think that's a huge issue now with Social Security. We need to make sure that we're funding that we are following through on the commitments that we made to our seniors. At the state level, we do the same thing. We want to follow through for our providers right now. They're the ones that are being forced to carry our debt for us, where they're pushing off payment to providers months and months and months. I believe the number was $6 billion that was pushed over from 2010 into fiscal year 2011, with no understanding of how that's going to be paid for. The other thing we need to do is we need to have a real budgeting process. What happens in Springfield right now is literally the last day of session, doors open up, the cart gets pushed in with these telephone book-sized documents that are on there, and they start just popping them on your desk along, literally, this thing. And they say, we're going to vote on this in 15 minutes. This is the budget. So my answer is no. I'm a no on that. Unless I know what's in there, I'm voting no for that. And we should be starting on day one when we're in session with that real budgeting process. That's the #1 priority. To me, it's offensive on the federal level, where they didn't have a budget to put down because they didn't pass a budget this year. First time in 36 years that Congress failed to pass any budget. They're just appropriating money. They continue to spend money, but with no budget. You have to ask yourself, why isn't there a budget? I believe the reason there isn't a budget is because they don't want to be held accountable. They don't want people to know that they're spending money we don't have, that they're going far above and beyond the money that's there. So we need someone at a very basic level, both in Springfield and in Washington, D.C., saying we need real budgets. We need to be able to allow the citizens here of Illinois to hold us accountable for the decisions we're making. So we can do some things. Ultimately, the real answer to get things turned around here in Illinois or Washington, D.C., is to get people working. So many good things happen when we're working. And working at the proper level. So we've got high unemployment, but also very high underemployment. So in other words, people who have just taken part-time jobs just to try and piece it together, to get through this month. And I give them so much credit for doing that. But I know we can do better. I know we can be a place where people can work up to their ability, feel confident in their jobs, not only confident that they're going to have their jobs next month, but next year, maybe a couple years from now, and they're probably going to be at a higher pay rate in a couple of years. We need to get back to that point. It wasn't that long ago. You think about 10 years ago, that we were at that point where we felt very confident in our jobs. We felt very confident in the economy here in Illinois. And we saw natural revenue growth that was happening down in Springfield, up in Washington. We need to get back to that point. Ultimately, we need to grow ourselves out of the issues that we're in, along with having fiscal restraint and common sense and accountability over years. That's from Washington. I know we're running a little bit low on time, but tell me if we need to cut it off. But yes, question over here.
To reinforce the story you told about your obstetrician, about 6 months ago, the group practice where my wife and I said to me, he will not take these people on the I'm really concerned about the message of that can't even accept. And I feel so guilty when I get the statement back from all the companies to go through it and see what he billed, how much they I realize if they raise those rates, it's going to come to me, but I just can't go. I feel guilty going to the doctor when he gets so good.
Well, I don't think it should be that way. I think we can do better. I agree with you. I really share that same concern. I've heard that many times. For whatever reason, Medicare and have to switch doctors, and all of a sudden now they realize doctors won't take any new Medicare patients or Medicaid patients. So your options are already being depleted of who you can go and see. And that's so unfortunate. That's not the quality of life that we would expect here. Having that ability to seek out doctors that serve us best, to make sure that they're getting a fair payment as well for the support they're providing. The other thing that concerns me is I talk to doctors, and many of the doctors who are maybe been in practice for 20 or 30 years, many of them are children of doctors, physicians, and it was an honorable profession. Now we're seeing many of our doctors discouraging their kids from going into the practice of medicine because of all the restrictions that are out there, all the concerns of where is that going to go. So I'm concerned about that as well, making sure that into the future we've got the best trained medical providers Last question? Let's do last question.
Bring it